promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja, Nigeria. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Senegal's political crisis deepens as National Assembly President resigns following dismissal of Prime Minister Sonko.
What is clear is that the president could indeed face difficulties in setting up a government since there is still a risk of vote of no confidence.
Beninese President Wadr forms a new government hours after his inauguration. Open Society Foundations urges continental unity on Africa Day to navigate volatile global geopolitical shifts.
Africa is coming from very far. We do have very interesting frameworks already adopted. Our countries now need to walk the talk.
Over 200 Ivorian migrants return home from Tunisia after months of difficult conditions. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We begin with a series of political development. First, in Senegal, the political crisis has taken another dramatic turn following the dismissal of Ousmane Sonko from the position of Prime Minister. The President of the National Assembly has announced his resignation. El Malik Ndiaye, a close ally of the now former Prime Minister, said he made the decision after deep reflection. Ousmane Sonko is also expected to be reinstated tomorrow, Tuesday, as a member of Parliament. Augustine Colley tells us the details.
It was on social media that Malik Ndiaye announced his resignation from the position of President of the National Assembly. The senior PASTEF official, who is close to Ousmane Sonko, said he took the decision after deep reflection. At the same time, the National Assembly announced a plenary session for Tuesday regarding the reinstatement of Ousmane Sonko as a deputy. The former Prime Minister is also being taped to become the new Speaker of the Parliament. According to Senegalese political analyst Malo Kante, this situation could trigger an institutional crisis in Senegal.
What is clear is that the president could indeed face difficulties in setting up a government since there is still a risk of vote of no confidence. However, he can always try to manage this situation, given that he himself, as Prime Minister, went 9 months without setting foot in the parliament. So, we assume that the next Prime Minister could also play this game, meaning trying to play for time so that the president, in any case, he has the option between now and December to dissolve the National Assembly, which will allow him, of course, at least if the majority changes sides, to be able to govern in complete tranquility.
Reactions from the opposition came swiftly. On his Facebook page, independent lawmaker Chano Alassane declared, and I quote, "PASTEF is seeking to revoke a major institutional crisis by forcing Sonko's installation as a Speaker of the National Assembly. Such an act is illegal and PASTEF knows it." End of quote.
Augustine Colley with that report. Elsewhere in Benin, a new administration has been constituted, just as after being sworn in as the new president, Romuald Wadr unveiled the composition of his government. The new cabinet, which reflects both continuity with the era of former President Patrice Talon and the arrival of fresh technocrats, is expected to inject new energy into public administration. With expectations running high among Beninese citizens, what message does this new government lineup send, and how could these appointments shape the country's development agenda in the years ahead? Abdullah Hassan tells us.
Benin's new government is made up of 21 ministers and 3 deputy ministers, with 8 members of former President Patrice Talon's last administration retaining key positions. Yvonne Dechenu remains Minister of Justice and now ranks first in the protocol order, while Benoit Dato keeps the sports portfolio. Veronique Tognifodi stays in charge of family affairs, and Reli Adam Sule Zumaro returns to head the communication ministry, a position she previously held before the portfolio was dissolved. Meanwhile, Olusegun Ajadi Bakari hands over the Foreign Affairs Ministry to Corinne Amori Brunet and now takes charge of tourism and private investment promotion. The retention of several experienced officials is seen as a sign that President Romuald Wadani wants to preserve administrative continuity and avoid major disruptions in public policy implementation. Another notable appointment is Aristide Medonu, the former Director General of the Economy, who has been promoted to Minister of Economy and Finance. He will now work alongside 3 deputy ministers responsible for finance, budget, and external resource mobilization and debt management. Analysts say the appointments reflect the new administration's determination to maintain Benin among sub-Saharan Africa's fastest-growing economies, with International Monetary Fund IMF projecting growth above 7% in 2025. Another major development is the creation of a ministry dedicated to the National Artificial Intelligence Strategy, highlighting the government's focus on innovation and digital transformation. President Wadani himself has acknowledged that one of the government's immediate priorities is ensuring that economic growth translates into better living conditions for ordinary Beninese families who are now waiting to see the new team in action.
Abdullahi Hassan with that explainer on President Romuald Wadani's newly formed government. From Benin, we head to Nigeria as the country prepares for the 2027 general elections. Nigeria's ruling All Progressives Congress has moved a step closer to the polls, with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu emerging as the winner of the party's presidential primary held across the country. The president received the party's certificate of return at a formal ceremony in Abuja on Sunday. WDRT Chenusa Situ reports.
President Bola Tinubu secured victory in the APC presidential primary conducted across the country as party officials concluded collation of results from the nationwide exercise.
To declare President Bola Ahmed Tinubu having satisfied the requirements of APC constitution and guidelines and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared the winner of the primary election.
The primary election, supervised by party leaders and designated coalition officials, was described by the APC as peaceful and transparent. Speaking after the exercise, President Tinubu commended party members and officials for what he described as their commitment to democratic processes and internal party unity ahead of the 2027 elections.
Today I return as your incumbent president, humbled by your enduring support, encouraged by your continued confidence, and imbued with renewed passion for the task ahead.
The president also addressed Nigeria's economic situation, assuring Nigerians that ongoing reforms were aimed at stabilizing the economy and improving long-term growth.
Today, our task is to affirm that continuity, which is essential, to consolidate the reform, to work harder for prosperity, to bring that hope home to our people, and work harder to ensure Nigeria's prosperity that we long expected.
The APC formally presented Tinubu with the party's certificate of return and flag in Abuja on Sunday as preparations continue for the 2027 general elections. For the WADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now let's reflect on the African continent. As Africa marks 63 years since the first Africa Day, the continent is being urged to embrace unity once again at a critical turning point in global affairs. The call by the Open Society Foundations comes at a time when insecurity, political instability, and economic pressures continue to slow development across parts of the continent. Desiree Asogbavi is advocacy advisor for Africa at the Open Society Foundations.
You know, Africa is coming from very far, from slavery, then colonization, then neo-colonialism, and now I don't even know how we call the current situation. So basically, Africa is at a very important moment in history. And this is because now we are seeing every day the huge change that is happening in the world. Big powers are competing for more influence. They are not fighting for more trade, and most importantly, technology and natural resources. And talking about natural resources, need for technology, and the green transition, you agree with me that Africa is in the center of that discussion. So we have a huge natural resource deposits. We have a growing market. And if we don't take advantage of it, we will kind of replay the same history that we had before, especially during the colonization time. So it is very important. We do have very interesting frameworks already adopted. Our countries now need to walk the talk.
That was Desiree Asogbavi, Advocacy Advisor for Africa at the Open Society Foundation's OSF. Stay with us because details of this development will come up during the guest interview segment. Now let's focus on migration issues. The Gambia Immigration Department has intercepted 73 would-be migrants attempting to leave the country. The individuals were caught during a series of operations conducted across coastal communities as part of efforts to curb irregular migration. The operations targeted several coastal communities, including Lamen, Faraba, Gunjur, and Tanje. Sang Donald Mendy reports from the Gambia.
The Gambia Immigration Department says the operations were conducted on Friday, 22nd May 2026 by the officers of the Border Patrol Unit stationed at the Tanje Migration Management Unit in Kumbo South. According to the immigration authorities, the coordinated operations led to the interception of 73 migrants in Lamin, Faraba, Gunjur, and Tanje. The intercepted individuals comprised 26 Gambians, 34 Senegalese, 6 Sierra Leoneans, 5 Guineans, 1 Malian, and 1 Ivorian national. The department says the operation forms part of the ongoing efforts to discourage youths from embarking on dangerous irregular migration journeys while promoting safer and regular migration pathways. The latest interceptions come shortly after the Gambia Police Force rescued 117 migrants of different nationalities from a distress boat at Semi Island in the North Bank region. The incident once again highlights the continued use of dangerous migration routes across West Africa and the Atlantic Ocean. Mustafa Sonko is a migration expert.
When you tell a young person that Europe is not easy, he will tell you that no matter how difficult it is, it cannot be compared to the Gambia. When you tell them there are a lot of opportunities in the Gambia, stay back home, they will tell you that we don't see those opportunities. Last but not least, you tell them irregular migration is dangerous, they know it better than you.
Despite growing awareness campaigns and repeated reports of deadly sea crossings, many young Africans continue to risk dangerous journeys in search of better economic opportunities abroad. In 2025 alone, 893 Gambian migrants were confirmed dead, including 840 at sea and 53 on land, while dozens of boats reportedly disappeared without a trace. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sangdona Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Meanwhile, more than 200 Ivorian migrants have returned home from Tunisia after months and, in some cases, years of hardship and failed attempts to reach Europe. A total of 243 men, women, and children arrived in Abidjan over the weekend aboard a special repatriation flight organized by the government of Côte d'Ivoire and Tunisia. According to the Directorate General for Ivorians Abroad, the returnees are currently being housed at a reception center in Abobo before reuniting with their families across the country. Many described extremely difficult living conditions in Tunisia, particularly in the city of Sfax. We turn to the Central Sahel region, particularly in Mali, where preparations for Tobaski are ongoing under difficult circumstances. Insecurity along several of the country's main roads is complicating the transport of livestock to Bamako, while the rising cost of living is shrinking families' purchasing power. In the capital's livestock market, both sellers and buyers say they are feeling the effect of the crisis just days away from the holiday. Christopher Teacher gives us the details of the story.
At the Lafiabogu livestock market, dozens of sheep are tied up in open-air pens. Under the intense heat, discussions heat up between sellers and potential buyers, with the latter judging the prices to be too exorbitant.
The sheep are very expensive compared to last year. Those that were sold for 150,000 CFA francs are now going for 200,000 CFA francs or even more. But we understand that there are economic difficulties. Those who transport the livestock tell us that they are facing constraints on the road.
For their part, the sellers explain that this price increase is due to the rising cost of transport and livestock feed.
We receive many customers, but we are unable to agree on the prices. They do not have enough money to buy certain sheep that are expensive. That is the whole problem. This increase in livestock prices is explained by the rising cost of feed, but also by transport costs. Between Senegal and Bamako, I transported 200 head of sheep for 1 million CFA francs.
For several weeks, the GNIM, the group for the support of Islam and Muslims, has been imposing a blockade on the main road networks. This situation makes it difficult to transport animals to Bamako.
We are facing enormous difficulties on the roads. To get to Bamako, we are forced to go through Kolikoro in order to avoid the fire forest. This scares us. Some of us had to stay behind because the roads are no longer safe.
Just 2 days away from Tabaski, uncertainty looms over the livestock market in the Malian capital. This year, holiday preparations are being shaped by a climate of economic and security hardships.
Correspondent Ali Cham's report voiced by Christopher Aticho. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. A reminder of our top stories. Senegal's political crisis deepens as National Assembly President resigns following dismissal of Prime Minister Sonko. Beninese President Wadr forms new government hours after his inauguration. Open Society Foundation urges continental unity on Africa Day to navigate volatile global geopolitical shifts. Over 200 Ivorian migrants return home from Tunisia after difficult conditions. Still ahead in the news, we have press review, guest interview, and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. Regarding health issues, Liberia has moved swiftly to calm fears over the Ebola outbreak. This follows an audio recording claiming that suspected Ebola patients were being treated at the country's main referral hospital, sparking anxiety across Monrovia. The incident has raised fresh concerns about misinformation and public panic in a country still haunted by memories of the deadly 2014 Ebola outbreak that claimed thousands of lives. Authorities say the circulation of unverified health information could undermine national preparedness efforts and create unnecessary fear among citizens. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker tells us more.
The Liberia National Police has now launched an investigation after a woman identified as Paula Bidell, believed to be a nurse, was arrested for allegedly spreading what officials described as false and misleading information. According to health authorities, Bidell was turned over to the police by the Ministry of Health after an audio recording circulated widely on social media alleging that 5 suspected Ebola cases were being treated at the John F. Kennedy Medical Center. In a joint statement, Liberia's Ministry of Health, the management of JFK Medical Center, and the National Public Health Institute of Liberia strongly denied the claims and reassured the public that Liberia has now recorded any confirmed Ebola case. The case has drawn national attention due to Liberia's painful history with the Ebola epidemic between 2014 and 2016, during which more than 4,800 people died in the country. Meanwhile, a Liberian medical doctor and former head of the National Public Health Institute of Liberia, Dr. Christopher Dukbayan, has assured Liberians not to panic but to remain vigilant in protecting their families.
There is no Ebola outbreak in Liberia. With rumors or without rumors, just continue to practice the necessary public health measures that we have put in place all along, from the very first time of Ebola in 2014 to COVID-19 to Mpox.
Health officials say Liberia's surveillance and emergency response systems remain active as neighboring countries continue monitoring outbreaks of infectious diseases across the region. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For the newspaper review this afternoon, let's join Yejenu Sasitu all the way in Abuja.
We begin with Nigerian Tribune. President Bola Tinubu secures landslide victory across states to clinch presidential ticket of ruling All Progressives Congress. Tinubu, who is seeking a second term in office, defeated fellow aspirant Stanley Osifo. Oyo State Government announces immediate suspension of all school excursions, field trips, inter-school sports competitions, and other activities that require students to move outside school premises, citing growing security concerns across the state. And now to Vanguard. 2027. 31 APC governors endorsed Tinubu with 10.99 million votes. Tinubu overwhelmed his sole challenger, Stanley Osifo, who garnered 16,503 votes. Headquarters Joint Task Force Operation Hadinkai raised alarm over possible attempts by remnant Boko Haram terrorists and ISWAP fighters to launch isolated attacks during Eid celebrations in the northeast. Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention places country on heightened Ebola alert amid worsening outbreak in Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. And finally, Nigerian Afrobeat singer Rema, Thai rapper Lisa, and Brazilian singer Anitta release Goals, which is official anthem for 2026 FIFA World Cup. And that's it on Press Review. Back to you in the studio.
That was Yejenu Sasitu with the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, Africa is facing growing insecurity, political instability, and economic pressures, which continue to slow development across parts of the continent. As part of an effort to address these challenges, the continent is being urged to embrace unity once again at a critical turning point in global affairs. The call by the Open Society Foundations comes as Africa marks 63 years since the first Africa Day. Our guest is Desiree Asogbavi, Advocacy Advisor for Africa at the Open Society Foundations.
Africa is at a very important moment in history. And this is because now we are seeing every day the huge change that is happening in the world. Big powers are competing for more influence. They are not fighting for more trade, and most importantly, technology and natural resources. And talking about natural resources, need for technology, and the green transition, you agree with me that Africa is in the center of that discussion. And Africa has, in addition to that, we do have the youngest population in the world. 60% of Africans have 25 years old. So we have a huge natural resource deposits. We have a growing market. And that's why basically I can say at this particular moment, Africa is in a very important moment. And if we don't take advantage of it, we will kind of replay the same history that we had before, especially during the colonization time.
What lessons are there for Africa to learn from past free market policies pushed by global institutions.
So one important lesson is that a market alone cannot develop a continent. For many years, African countries were told to privatize everything, to reduce the role of government and states, and open the market very quickly to the rest of the world. In many cases, this has weakened local industry and made the continent more dependent on exporting raw material only. And it has not given us any advantage to develop.
What role can the African Union, AU, and the African Continental Free Trade Area play in strengthening Africa's bargaining power?
Today, we know that alone, many African countries are too small economies. So we need to put our strength together. So together, Africa will become a very powerful market. Again, once the free trade area becomes truly operational, and on that, I must say that we still have some way to go. It's not happening the way we expect for it to happen. For example, we are still struggling with free movement of people, goods. If people cannot move within the continent, we won't be able to trade. So the free trade area looks very good on paper, but we need to be very courageous to make it happen. So I believe the EU can also help countries to defend common position on many issues. We have seen it happening already on debt. It's happening on climate issues. Where it's not yet happening is on the management of our natural resources. We do have very interesting frameworks already adopted. Our countries now need to walk the talk.
In practical terms, Desiree, what should African leaders prioritize over the next decade to achieve real transformation? I, for one, will point at security. Can you tell us more?
Given the current states of the continent, I can imagine at least 4 main priorities moving forward, thinking about the next 10 years. So the first thing will be to create a job. And how to do that? We need to prioritize industrialization. Second, we need to address the security issues. And if you look at the way we have been addressing security issues, we need to rethink it. We need to look at the root causes. That means we need to address extreme poverty. We need to address injustice. We need to better manage the diversity within the continent. Now, number 3, we need to reinforce democracy, respect our constitution, and protect freedom. The 4th one, we need to improve how we govern our institution, how we govern our communities, how we fight corruption, so that public goods are fairly distributed among our communities.
That was Desiree Sogba, the Advocacy Advisor for Africa at the Open Society Foundations. In the world of sports, Mamelodi Sundown won the Total Energies CAF Champions League for their second time after holding FAR Rabat to a 1-1 draw in the second leg of the final in Morocco on Sunday night. The South African side completed a 2-1 aggregate victory at the Mulai Abdullah Stadium on Sunday, adding to their first leg 1-0 win in Pretoria last week. Mohamed Rimat gave FAR Rabat hope from the penalty spot in the 40th minute, but Teboho Moakena's superb strike in the first half stoppage time restored Sundown's aggregate lead and proved decisive. The victory gives Sundown their second Champions League crown and hands their coach the title after previous final disappointments on the continent. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of News Link on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Augusto Capa Gomez for their technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to NewsLink.